My name's Arthur. I left school in 1969 before O-levels and started training to be an accountant on traditionally low starting wages. All my mates earned more than me and I got fed up with that and packed it in. I started a bit of a nomadic life, mainly to get away from my stepfather. My biological father died when I was 6 weeks old. I travelled around Britain and Europe, did all manner of jobs from farm or factory work to office work. I grew tired of my hand-to-mouth lifestyle and settled back in Liverpool. Studied for A-levels and in 1983, aged 31, gained admittance to university where I studied Spanish, having picked up a liking for the language whilst I was travelling about. I qualified as a secondary teacher of modern languages, but I'd realised towards the end of my training that I wasn't really cut out for arguing with teenagers most of the day. So I went to work in Germany, teaching English. I stayed there for 3 years and would have stayed longer had it not been for the succession of deaths in my family. I moved back to the UK and stayed here, mainly to be able to be offered support to my now widowed mother. In 1992 I met my wife and we married in 1993, also getting a teenage stepdaughter. We were both working. I was teaching English to refugees in a training agency. My wife worked in a care home. Neither of us earned much, but we had enough. In 1994, our private landlord put up the rent to a level we couldn't afford. I argued about it and refused to pay the increase. We went to give blood one day in the summer of that year. Something showed up in the screening of mine and they wanted to do tests. The upshot of it was that I was diagnosed with cancer of the kidney and told that if I didn't have the kidney removed, I'd be dead within 3 months. Just a few days before the diagnosis, we were served with an eviction notice, and now we panicked. We found a flat and moved into it about a week before I went into hospital. My employers were good to me. They kept my post open and paid me in full for about 3 months. It had been a harrowing time when I returned to work. I wasn't performing as well as before, and they tactfully made my post redundant. A week later, my wife was made redundant from the factory job she'd got, another blow. The council said that our rent was too high and we refused to pay it in full. Our daughter had left home and asked to come back. She couldn't claim anything in her own right, and the social security wouldn't give us anything for it because she'd left full-time education. For several months, the three of us were living on £35 a week. I tried to get more work, without success, and sank deeper into depression. The only good thing that was that following the cancer we were given medical priority on the housing list, and in 1996 we were offered a 3-bedroomed house despite only having applied for a 2-bedroom property. We breathed a sigh of relief and took it. It has a largish back garden and I converted a portion of it to a vegetable garden. I was out of work for 3 years. I did try to keep in the swim. I learned to use a computer under my own tuition. I did voluntary literacy and numeracy teaching for Whittle Met and worked as a volunteer at the CAB. Their treasurer resigned and I offered to keep the books for them and edged back from teaching to accounts work. I eventually managed to get a temporary accounts job for a Manchester-based landmine clearance charity covering a maternity leave. When the lady returned to work, I proved my worth and they offered me a permanent post dealing with the purchase ledger and payroll. In 1999, they asked if I'd be willing to work as a finance and admin manager of their Kosovo project. After talking it over with my family, I accepted and went to Kosovo. Only 18 months before, I had been convinced that at the age of 47 I was on the scrap heap with no prospect of work at all. I didn't enjoy working in Kosovo, but don't now regret the experience. Donor interest in Kosovo flagged and funding dried up. All the staff there received redundancy notices by fax. However, before leaving Kosovo, I was asked if I was willing to carry out the same job in Angola, and I agreed. I was apprehensive about going. I'd heard lots of horror stories, and they turned out to be false in the main. The people were great and I enjoyed working there, but was only allowed 2 flights back to the UK a year. Then after 2 years there, I was taken into hospital in Angola with severe chest pains. They thought I had heart disease. I was brought back to the UK and had extensive tests here. The result of that was my heart was okay, and that the chest pain had been stress-induced. The insurance company refused to cover me to work abroad. My former post in the head office had been filled and I was again made redundant. Shit. I managed to find more accounts work in the charity in Crosby. The pay was poor and being in the accounts office I saw all that was going on financially and could see that the writing was on the wall. I needed to get out. I sent my CV to all the colleagues in the area and got a phone call a few weeks later. Would I go and have a chat with them at Knowsley Community College? So I went, and after a short interview was offered 2 evening classes, one teaching literacy and the other teaching numeracy. So I did my office job during the day and went straight to the teaching job. It paid off, and when I asked if they could give me more hours, they offered me a full-time post. Thank God. I taught literacy, numeracy, some Spanish and some IT. I thought I'd be okay then. I was 52 and felt very lucky to get that job. I was there 6 years when cuts to further education put me out on the bones again in 2010. In 2009, I'd had 4 months off work, sick under hospital treatment. I was pushing 60 and employers always asked for the sickness record, and I felt I had very little chance of getting work again. I tried and tried but didn't get anything. My wife had developed osteoarthritis and hadn't worked for some months. It hadn't mattered to us financially because I had been earning enough for both of us. But when I went to sign on, they wouldn't give me anything for it. When I told them she wasn't well enough to work, they told me she either went on the sick or signed on for work. She had to claim sickness benefits. She could have done that earlier, but she didn't because we'd had enough. Now she had to. She signed on sick, had an 80 OS medical and awarded ESA. She was advised by a doctor to claim DLA, and when she saw the questions on the form, refused to do it, feeling she wasn't ill enough and the questions to be rude and intrusive. After 9 months of jumping through the government hoops and looking for a non-existent job, the stress of it was getting to me, and a kind-hearted and perceptive advisor at the centre suggested that I would be better piggybacking my wife's claim. I could still look for work, but didn't have to keep proving it. This is what I did. When I received my redundancy pay, it wasn't much, as I only qualified for 5 full years service. I decided it would be sensible to buy things that were going to last. I bought a greenhouse, had its base laid and made raised vegetable beds. We bought a number of things for the house, including installing the shower downstairs for my wife, who cannot now get into and out of the bath without help. Now this odious and unfair bedroom tax is taking that little extra that she gets because she is ill and is putting us below subsistence level. The money we have spent on the house is moving into it, counting nothing. And all the years of paying the rent and council tax in full from my earnings are disregarded. We haven't shared a bedroom since I got back from Angola, for reasons I don't want to go into. And she spends her days in a living room or stays in bed. And I use the box room as my living room. So we don't regard ourselves as having a spare room. We each have a bedroom and share the kitchen. We generally eat together, but neither of us wishes to sleep with the other. The government is trying to enforce intimacy on us. We don't have to move, it would have to be into 2 one-bedroom properties, and as they don't seem to exist, we're knackered. They've heartlessly shifted the goalposts without looking into individual circumstances. They pulled the rug from under my feet in 2010. Now they're putting the boot in while I'm still down. They're raising the pension age. If I were 2 years older, this wouldn't be happening to me. I know I'm not the only one, but every time I seem to be getting ahead, something happens to throw me back down. It really does make you feel like there's no point in struggling any longer. Sometimes I wish I'd never gone to give blood in 1994.